dance, and drama all into one. The thing I wanted to do business with was government because things just never got done.
Hello there, my name is Adesuwa Onyenokwe, and this remains Seriously Speaking, that show where we try to get you to understand certain issues that affect our nation. And of course, today we shall be talking about the economy. In 2014, Nigeria rebased its gross domestic product data from 1990 to 2010. And what happened? It resulted in an 89% increase in the estimated size of the economy, making it Africa's biggest economy. According to the Nigerian Statistics Office, the GDP for 2013 totaled 80.3 trillion naira. In US dollars, that would be around 510 billion US dollars. South Africa used to be the biggest economy in Africa with about 352 billion US dollars. But as of December 2014, again, there was good news. Inflation rate in Nigeria was recorded at about 8%. Yet in recent times, what we're hearing are words like austerity measures and belt-tightening going forward. However, some economists still point out that Nigeria's economic output is underperforming. Now, all this sounds like a lot of jargon to some of us who just understand economy based on the fact that we go to the market and we buy yam at 700 naira still up until today. What's the difference between 6 and 6 pence? I have in the house today two very seasoned economists who will try to educate me as you become educated also about the economic issues. Are we really going to be tightening belts going ahead? It doesn't matter who's ruling or who's not ruling. What should we be preparing our minds for? What are the indices that we should be reckoning with as we prepare for tougher times in 2015? I don't know. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with my guests on the show today. Yes, welcome back. It's serious business when you're talking about the economy, and it's beyond rice and tomato in the market or beyond what the price of oil is and all of that. Everything is related. My first guest on the show today is a pure economist. He graduated top of his class. He doesn't like me to say that, but that's the truth. He's Dr. Ayo Teriba. Dr. Teriba is the CEO of Economic Associates. He has worked as an economist at the Lagos Business School, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce, and the UAC of Nigeria. He has also worked as a consultant to Coca-Cola Nigeria, Federal Ministry of Information, the Senate Committee on Banking and Finance, amongst others. But he holds a BSc Economics from the University of Ibadan and graduated as the all-round best economics graduate in 1988. He also holds a master's degree in economics from the same school. In 2003, he bagged his PhD in applied econometrics, and monetary economics. What's econometrics? Welcome, Dr. Teriba. It's nice to have you here. I simply call you Ayo.
Nice to be here. Yes.
For the purpose of this show, can I stick with Ayo?
That's fine, yeah.
That's nice. I appreciate the fact that on short notice, you just decided to come and join us on the show.
It's a pleasure.
Obviously, economics is something you're very passionate about. Did it choose you or you chose it?
We chose each other, I guess.
Really?
Somehow. Well, the economic challenges of Nigeria, about the time I
went to university.
Yeah, mid-80s, the time of austerity, the genuine austerity, and structural adjustment, military government taking over from themselves. The challenges were such that you would want to try and figure out, some solutions. So that, made me to go and study economics. And it's also made me to, continue to practice economics. And here we are again, yet more questions to provide answers.
You said something about genuine austerity. Does that mean that, in my intro I mentioned, because I've had talks about austerity and stuff like that. 83, there was austerity. That was genuine austerity.
Yeah.
The one we hear talks about now, is it genuine or it's fake?
Well, in 1983, the economy was in decline. Government at federal and state levels were retrenching. So no one was in any doubt that things were bad and you needed to do austerity. Yeah, but today, within the last year, Nigeria, became, officially recognized as the biggest economy in Africa. if you see the sort of business that big companies, international companies that entered this market over the last 1 decade are doing, you'll know that it's true. That Nigeria offers the biggest business opportunity in Africa. No other African market is going to offer the telecom giants that are playing here the kind of business that they found to do in Nigeria. So talking about austerity within the same year before the year ended makes you wonder whether austerity now has, a new meaning. So, but you have a situation in which truly the economy is doing well, is growing fast. Well, the government expects a slightly, slower rate of growth in 2015. But government is saying to you that they don't have enough revenue to continue to back their spending, and they want to cut spending. So we have a situation in which the economy booms, but government is finding it difficult to get enough revenue to run things. So that's the conflict.
That's the state of the economy today. It's booming, but we don't have enough money to solve our problems. That's what we're saying.
Money to spend, yeah.
So when an economy is booming, how does it show? When they say GDP, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's the GDP actually measures the economic activity taking place, like goods and services produced, usually over a period of 1 year. And of course, goods and services produced, the process of producing the goods, the residents and income. So GDP refers to
That's the amount of transactions going on within an economy.
As you sell your goods, you get income, and it refers to expenditure. So, but talking about GDP, Nigeria value of output produced in the country is 80 trillion. And that means that income, that the different, people who contribute to that production income they get, is 80 trillion.
Okay, that means in 2013, 80 trillion naira exchanged hands in this economy.
That's right.
It could have been in a few hands, could it?
Well, in terms of expenditure, about 60 trillion of that was consumption. And about 12 trillion was investment. And the rest, government.
What does that say about the kind of economy that we have?
Right. We're talking about income, we're talking about spending, we're talking about output. The one that interests people the most is output. If you say the economy generated 80 trillion naira, generated 80 trillion doing what? The biggest slice in our economic output is crop production.
Really?
The next is trading. And oil is third. Before you have real estate, you have telecoms, and communication, and you have manufacturing. And a host of, other small activities. The biggest 6, are the ones I've just named. But if you wanted to divide them into broad groups, the Nigerian economy is currently dominated by extractive activities, which is agric and oil. The bulk of our output comes from gifts of nature.
The thing that God has given to us.
That's right. And we do some trading on top of that. We do along with the trading, we do commercial activity, banking, insurance, and the rest of it. We don't do much manufacturing. A major weakness of the Nigerian economy today is that as blessed as we are with raw materials, we still find it difficult to translate the raw materials into manufactured items.
So what you're telling me is the fact that manufacturing is not working very well. It's one of the obstacles, because of certain obstacles, one of the reasons why the economy, even though it looks like it's booming, we're not seeing the benefits. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's booming, and we are seeing the benefits. It's just that we still depend on imports for manufactured goods. So our raw material gets shipped abroad, but the goods, the manufactured items, we still depend on imports, and you can make them in Nigeria. If you can fix rail transportation, that restores competitiveness to domestic manufacturing.
Power, we talking about energy.
So we can process our own raw materials and produce to meet the demand
that already exists
for manufacturing for our populace. Now, businesses cannot resolve rail themselves. They can generate their own power to some extent, but they can't build their own rail. They can't run their own. The government has to do something. And I'm talking of rail transportation for cargo, for haulage, not necessarily commuter transportation. Commuter transportation you get, but you need a rail transport system that is functional enough to distribute, cargo.
Okay,
all over the country.
point is, by the time we sit in the panel with my second guest, we will be able to examine more thoroughly some of the perspectives, to these issues. But I would like you to round up by telling me your own perception of the Nigerian economy today, in just a few words. Excellent. Excellent.
Over the last 15 years, coinciding with the democratic, dispensation, Nigeria has been fortunate that global commodity prices had risen, and therefore given Nigeria superior incomes from the exports of both oil and crops. And that income has fueled trade, has made sectors like telecom boom. So for the last 15 years, the Nigerian economy has risen out of the stagnation that it had been in the 80s and the 90s. There are still grounds to cover, but Nigeria has enjoyed genuine recovery. All departmental stores were what we had in the 80s. They all closed down. But in their place now, you have shopping malls, springing up in different parts of the country, which is an evidence, that the spending power, is back in the country. But that situation is challenged currently by the decline in oil price in the second half of last year. And we've also seen contraction in the stock market. So we have challenges to deal with at the moment, and the government seems to be constrained, in being able to respond to that situation because they had depended too much on oil revenue. But I believe that these are temporary issues that Nigeria will be able to deal with them. Nigeria has bigger opportunities for additional growth. For example, if we're able to make power work, you can imagine if this growth is happening without power, you can imagine how much faster growth will be if power work. This growth is happening without rail transport. You can imagine, how much more growth will be if rail could work, if Nigeria could have, adequate supply of petroleum products. So the opportunities are there. There are short-term challenges. I believe that government will eventually, somehow, get
it right. Okay, so I must thank you for spending this last 10 minutes talking about this. I will have to introduce my second guest, who I would like to look more in the area of monetary policies and government policies that may have brought us to where we are today. So we'll take a short break, and I will invite my second guest on the show today. Thank you very much, Ayo.
Thank you.
Yes, welcome back to Seriously Speaking. My next guest is Mr. Bismarck J. Rewane. Mr. Bismarck Rewane is a managing director and chief executive of Financial Derivatives Company Limited. He obtained a BSc degree in economics from the University of Ibadan in 1972. He began his banking career with the Barclays Bank UK in 1973 and joined Barclays Bank of Nigeria in 1975. In 1976, he joined the First National Bank of Chicago. He also served as General Manager, International Merchant Bank, Nigeria Limited, from 1981 to 1996. He's an associate member of the Institute of Bankers, England and Wales, among several other things. It's my pleasure to welcome somebody I call a guru when it comes to the area of monetary policies, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Please join me on set. And I see that we have some images of you. It's nice to have you, sir. You have to tell me the secret of this, the way you look. You look like somebody that was born 20 years ago.
It's economics.
What do you mean? Is it a function of how wealthy you are?
No. how efficient I am at consumption.
At consumption?
Yeah.
It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
There's one thing I've always wanted to ask. What's J?
Jamie Day. It means that God makes me wait.
Oh, really?
The best time is God's time.
God's time is the best.
Yeah.
Can we say that with the Nigerian economy, though? Can we afford to lead the economy to a situation of God's time is the best?
No.
Unfortunately.
No, unfortunately, no. Things don't happen by coincidence anymore. You have to work. Success comes as a result of hard work. And so work doesn't mean just laborious work. It means mental work. The problem we face in Nigeria, which there are numerous, is that there's a preponderance of mental lethargy and mental laziness. So people,
is it on all sides?
Everywhere. People don't think. And thinking is done by very few people because it's very difficult to think. A lot of people just work. They go out in the morning not knowing what they're going to do. But that's the big danger of this economy right now.
Okay, I mean, I would like I did with Ayo earlier, I asked him what he thought. You know, to us, the ordinary Nigerians, the fact that we are rebased and we're such a big economy, we thought it meant that at least we all be richer. But what I'm hearing that's not the case.
No, the way you look at rebasing is that, look, you had a faulty scale. And so it was showing that you're 60 pounds or 60, kilos. But now they brought the right scale and they say you are 75 kilos. You haven't become fatter or bigger. It's an accurate measure. So in reality, if you were thinking that you were 60 kilos and therefore you could, with that kind of weight, you could produce 100 units of output, yams. Because you are actually 80 kilos, you should be producing more. So it brings to the reality and to the world the extent of your inefficiency. So it's not anything to celebrate, it's something to actually worry about. That why have I been underperforming my potential?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I wonder, though, because you've done a lot of work around the area of monetary policies,
Yes.
you've even been part of people forming some of these policies. Would you say that it's in our monetary policies? I mean...
No, let's understand. There's fiscal policy, which it revolves around taxes, expenditure, duty, growth, development issues. Monetary policy is about stability, short term. That's interest rates, exchange rate, and reserves. That's all. So there's a lot of misconception, and people begin to hold monetary policy officials responsible for fiscal policy problems. The current discourse between the former governor of the central bank and the Minister of Finance it's evidence of the typical conflict between monetary policy and fiscal policy. The Minister of Finance is a fiscalist, while the former governor of the central bank was talking about monetary policy, but everybody trying to either take credit or discredit for economic outcomes. You cannot do one without the exclusion of the other. But it's good to understand the context of one and the other. So people talk about outcomes. People talk about the data. But what they forget is causality and what we call counterfactuals, so that you understand economic outcomes in the context of monetary conditions as different from monetary policy. The condition you are is different from the policy. The policy you use is to address the condition you are in. The drugs you take are to address your health condition, not vice versa.
Okay, so could it be that we don't, maybe our leadership doesn't quite understand the differences, but we have all the good advisors?
No, even the best of economists, we get confused at times between one thing and the other, because there's your, your subconscious reaction to things, which is your normal human. Then there's the rational. You see, there are two parts of the mind to making decisions. Economics is science of scarcity and science of choice, right? So you want to decide between buying margarine and buying butter. That's an economic decision. Every human being is an economic agent. Every human being is an economist. Only that some study it while every other person practices.
Just lives it.
They practice. So there's no question about it. And the most efficient and the most efficient economists are the market women you see in because they make decisions every morning as to how much tomatoes you're going to buy, at what price to sell it, and at the end of the day,
what is left?
In fact, you cannot carry yesterday's tomatoes because it'll be damaged. So what makes them sell the tomatoes at 3 o'clock at a particular price? What makes them sell it at 8 o'clock in the morning at a particular price? And if they are inefficient, they will not come back to the market the next day. So they have to be, they must have been efficient to survive in that marketplace, selling and buying perishables all along. So those are the real economists. Those of us who write a few papers here and there and do some regression are not economists, where we are studying what those economists are doing. What the real economists are these economic agents.
So tell me, how would you now size up the condition of our economy today?
Yes, first and foremost, there's too much emphasis on the problems of Nigeria, and everybody knows it. So I can roll out 100 problems, and you ask my driver the same thing. Everybody knows the problems. Well, we should be talking about what are the solutions. Number one, our situation, when we talk about monetary conditions, is that we have limited resources and we have so much to do. Therefore, how do we prioritize one above the other? I was talking to you a few minutes ago about rail transportation, right?
Yes.
Okay. So because our resources are limited, we now need to pick those things that have the greatest impact, one. Two, the things that have the greatest linkages. Because if you take one sector in isolation and that sector just grows, it does nothing. The linkages of one sector to the other drives what we call, at times we use the unbalanced growth theory, which a fast-growing sector would drag the others along. And if the gravitational forces are more than the negative gravitational forces of the slow sectors, the entire economy will move. But if the negative forces are more than that fast-growing sector, then you have it. I'll give you an example. In 2004, we had a recapitalization of the banking system. So the banks went up by over 200% or what have you to 25 billion naira, created mergers and consolidation. The banking sector was supposed to drag along the other sectors.
Like the SMEs, for
example. They did, but then because capacity weaknesses and the crisis of confidence, liquidity in the system, when there was a failure in that system, it actually took the entire economy down with it. Okay, and we are just trying to recover from that now. So you must identify the sectors that have the greatest impact and the greatest linkages that can move others with them, right? So the question of transport infrastructure.
So
right?
Which one is most important?
Transport infrastructure, because if you look at the financial statement of any company today, there are some cost elements. Finance costs, people say the availability of finance is one thing, that's good. Financial costs has grown by something like almost 2, 3, 4% more than the previous year. But logistics and distribution costs has grown by 11% and then 17%. In other words, let me explain it. It is, if you bring petrol, import petrol into Nigeria, which unfortunately we do, the cost of moving the petrol from Lagos to Kaduna or something, at times is more than the cost of the liter. So the transportation margin, the bridge margin, which they call at times, is higher than the cost of the liter or what have you. But that's not, you'll find that distribution cost has grown by as much as 17%, whilst financial cost has grown by only 3 or 4%.
So it still reduces the value of what we get.
So your inflationary pressures are as a result of low productivity, inefficiency, bottlenecks, and all that stricture. So transportation opens that up. Apart from that, telecommunication is making communication better. Productivity as a result of knowledge and technology. So once productivity increases, goods produced increase, the money supply stays constant, you find that prices are stable, the currency strengthens, and everything happens.
So in summary, we are still in a state of many opportunities, but making the decisions that will help us tap those opportunities is what is key. No,
not that. Deciding what to give up. You see, everybody, the biggest decision a man has to do is, what are the things that you will not do?
Not what are the things that you will do?
No. Because once you take away the things that you will not do, then things that you will do becomes
easy. So I must take a break so that we can discuss this thoroughly, more thoroughly with my other guest so that we can have the two perspectives. Yes. I call Ayo the professor and you are the one that is the actual doer because you're on the streets making sure, you're in the business. So I would like to take a break and I return to the panel section where we now can at least be with each other and share, and hopefully you take your pieces of paper and take our notes. Yes, welcome back. I will welcome you back with a statement by Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, our Minister of Finance. When Nigeria's economy was rebased April last year, within the long comments that she made, I picked out this one, which says that it's actually with better information that we can now see that our economy is more diversified than before. And I would like my guest, my erudite economist, although Mr. Rewane says I'm even a better economist, or the tomato seller is a better economist, or is an economist as well.
Absolutely.
To start from there, rebasing, it seemed like there were some parts of our economy that we didn't recognize before, that suddenly we now saw. Could we start with Ayo to comment on that, what she said?
Right, it's two things. That as of the last base year, in 1990, there were sectors of the economy that were either non-existent or insignificant.
Or ignored.
Insignificant. And therefore, were excluded from the calculation of the production in the economy. That's one group.
E.g. Give me one example.
E.g. I said either non-existent or insignificant. These Nollywood.
Okay.
We picked it up at $1 trillion. In 2013. Then there is also telecoms.
Oh, wow.
The number of lines that we had in 1990.
400,000.
That was 2001.
Yeah, okay.
In 1990, it was 200,000. And now in 2010, we're talking of 130 million. So that's one reason for the rebasing. The other reason for the rebasing is that some activities that were informal, that used to be informal and therefore difficult to capture in the economic activity, had increasingly become formalized, more visible, and you could get information on them, like trading. Trading is one of the activities that jumped up.
Even if I'm buying and exporting, even if I'm buying imported goods.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, trading is about the margin. Yes. It doesn't matter where the good comes from, and even crop production. So these were the, sources of the rebasing, and it's discovered, that the economy had been, is twice as big as we thought it was.
So what was the disadvantage of not knowing how big our economy is, and why did we take so long to rebase?
No, it's a more accurate measure. Like I said, you bought a scale which is now digital.
Why didn't we buy that scale earlier?
The scales, first of all, the scales were not available. Secondly, we didn't know the relevance and importance of having an accurate measure. Thirdly, it was not in our interest to measure it accurately at that time because we're seeking debt forgiveness. And if by rebasing we became a middle-income country, we will not have available to us the HIPIC, which is called the Highly Indebted Poor Country Initiative. But after the debt rescheduling, it became necessary to have a more accurate picture.
So that was a wise decision. Was it strategic?
Yeah, definitely. Whether we like it or not, somebody will have to measure you anyway. So even if you didn't measure yourself, somebody will measure you.
Okay.
So because in dealing with you, they want to know what your real size is. Okay. Now, second most important thing is that we should not confuse a more accurate measure with growth. You haven't grown. You are the same person. The only thing is that now we measured your height, we have a better, or your weight, we now have a better understanding. Therefore, we can decide, one, what class you should be in, what type of clothes, what size of clothes you should be wearing, and what to expect from you because of your weight. If before we thought that you were 60 pounds and therefore we expect only 100 yams from you, now we know that you're 120 pounds, we expect 200 yams from you.
So the expectations are higher.
Higher. And therefore, when you talk about diversification, what's the purpose of diversification? Diversification is a hedge against volatility. The next question is that if you are well diversified, which we are, therefore our vulnerability to shocks like the one we are facing today should not be as high as we have today.
Are we really well diversified?
No, you are, because the real sector and the service sector, we now have 53 or 52% services and 48% real. But diversification itself is not, when you say well diversified means
many options.
It's spread out. But is that the best combination that you have? I think Ayo
wants to comment on that, yes.
Yeah, that diversification in the sense that Nigeria's production has both oil and non-oil. And in non-oil, it has both agriculture and services. Although a key missing link that you might say, as diversified as we are not yet sufficiently diversified, is the weakness in manufacturing.
Oh, so that's the weak link.
Manufacturing has strong linkage effect on all the sectors of the economy. In times of global downturn, if you have domestic manufacturing, your economy will be better able to withstand
the shocks.
The downturn. Right now, if oil price drops too low, you shut the wells.
Could this...
If crop prices drop too low, hectarage will fall. But manufacturing is a lot more resilient. If demand for one item, you can adapt, So that's missing in the Nigerian story. And it is affecting our export earnings. As diversified as our output is, our export earnings is dominated by oil because we don't have manufacturing competitiveness.
We don't produce anything.
If we get competitive in manufacturing and begin to export, even to neighboring African markets, it's going to boost our... So we need export diversification, not just
I would like to come in here too. Maybe because for the ordinary man, when he heard this rebasing, that now we're a bigger economy than South Africa, it was like, oh, suddenly we're richer than South Africa. What you're saying, that doesn't mean we're richer.
No.
Because our population is
as a matter of fact, you're poorer, right?
Maybe does that explain the unemployment that is still very high?
No, that's okay. But the thing is that output, you are not going to pay your debts with yam and palm oil. You are going to pay your debts with your revenue. The question is that what was your revenue last year and what was your revenue this year? Don't mistake output with revenue. Don't mistake the furniture in your house with the balance on your bank account. So we're now in a bigger house. We have chairs and all of this. But the balance on the account, you cannot write a check on your chairs. You write a check on your bank balance. And that's where the real issue. So let's not confuse the ignorant, right? Output measure, income measure, expenditure approach. Those are three approaches to estimate GDP. And the GDP has various constituents. So what we've said is that we've gone on a scale, this bad scale, the former scale was bad. It said we're 60 pounds. We've checked it out. We are now 120 pounds. Thank you very much. So go to the class where people who are over 100 pounds are
promoted.
And therefore, you must produce what those people who have that weight of 100 pounds and above should produce. You cannot produce when you are in the former class where we thought you had 60 pounds. That is the question. So you are number 26 in the world in a size, economic size, but you are number 121 when it comes to the income per capita, income per head. You have 3%, almost 2.5% of global population, right? But you have 0.25% of global output. America has 3% of global population and has 25% of global output.
Okay, tell me how Yasikira, who's selling in Lekki Market, will understand all of this. What has this got to do with her?
No, Yasikira is selling yams. Yasikira will know because when she has to pay the school fees of her child who has gone to America, she has to look for more naira. She has to look for 210 to buy $1. But also, Yasikira will also say, things are good because the dollars her son used to send to her from Chicago. Right? When she used to send $100, she used to get 150. She's now getting 210 naira, and she's richer from. So for the school fees for the one that is going, she's paying more. But for the ones that are finished, the money that is coming in, so she understands economic variables the way it relates to her in her own condition. And that's why I'm saying everybody's an economic agent. So for buying tomatoes, she says inflation, the price of tomatoes has gone up. for selling, and she has to pass it on to the market. But the market cannot absorb it, so people are unemployed. Gee, so I can't buy the tomatoes at this price. And the guy says, well, so she's an intermediary, right, between
So she's not so ignorant. That's what we're saying.
She's not ignorant at all.
She's not so relevant. Is she relevant?
She's relevant, but you see, let's not confuse literacy in English with literacy. Let's not confuse ignorance with sophistication, right? She's an efficient economic agent. That's why she's in business. But she's not sophisticated because she cannot use your WhatsApp and all of that. But she knows at the end of the day, she makes enough money, and the profit and the surplus created, right, is used to pay the school fees of our children. And at times when the child is finished, she receives the surplus from the child diaspora inflows coming in. And those economic activities and the variables affect her life in many ways. And not only that, she tells her neighbor that, look, oh, my son has just sent me $200, and this is what I got for it. Why? Say the exchange rate has moved. Why is the exchange rate? They say because the price of oil has come down. She is interpreting economic variables in our own understanding practically. And that is what I don't want us to say that the economics is confined to people who are literate in English language.
Well, I agree with that. I remember I was saying something about there are a lot of opportunities we are growing fast, a growing economy, but we don't have the revenue to back it up. Now, this would be a leadership problem, or is it, I don't know.
Right. I wanted to contribute to the Yasikira.
Go ahead. Can you use Yasikira's?
Rebasing.
Yes.
How does rebasing make sense to Yasikira? Is that our GDP, as BJ said, is 26th highest in the world. But we Nigerians have the 7th largest population in the world. So number 7 in population and number 26 in output. You see?
And number 121 in individual prosperity.
So if you divide the output with the population, you become number 121 in the world. So we're a lot. We are the 7th largest population in the world. So connect the dots
for me, please.
So for your economy, for you to have good ranking in terms of income per head,
you have to increase output.
Your output has to be closer to number 7 in the world as well. Okay?
Well, I'm more concerned about being that number 121, about my own personal well-being.
That's the income.
Okay.
So for you to jump from number 131, you also have to push your economy from 26 to maybe 10. You know, so Nigeria is big. It's bigger than South Africa now.
Yes.
But so is Nigeria's population. Nigeria's population is 3 times that of South Africa. So for you to compare average income levels in Nigeria with South Africa, your economy has to be 3 times as big.
So how do we get there? Maybe we should start talking about how to get because
go and fix power. Go and fix rail.
Excuse me, then. Why I'm asking this question is that in the current dispensation, new leaders or leaders are going to be elected. You know, and therefore we have been hearing tighten your belt. You know, is that the way to go?
I think that the problem is not the economy. The problem is the government. You cannot...
It's the managers of the economy.
You cannot be running an economy that is the largest in Africa, and you don't have as much revenue as South Africa, or as Egypt, or as Algeria, who are running much smaller economies. The Algerian economy is just $211 billion US. They have more revenue than Nigeria. So with slightly more revenue, it's not good enough. So you have to look for a way that large economy that you run must deliver enough revenue for government to maintain, some minimum level of governance. And part of the problem, which if we go by the news breaking recently, is that perhaps the revenue is there, perhaps the leakages, on the revenue collection side, and money missing even after it gets into government. So now the leaders have to do something about it, regardless
what are your
of
thoughts
who
on
wins.
That,
let me tell you, first and foremost, I start by saying there's what we call oil rich and oil poor.
No, you know what? I want us to link it to agriculture. That's supposed to be doing well now.
I'm coming. Oil rich and oil poor. For every 12,000 barrels of oil for 1 million people in Nigeria, there are 295,000 barrels of oil for 1 million people in Saudi Arabia. 12,000, 295,000.
Wow.
Saudi Arabia is smaller. Saudi Arabia's income per capita is about $19,000. Ours is about $2,600. Okay. Now, so what are you leading? First of all, you've got to have a vision as to where you're going and how you can optimize output. Potential GDP in Nigeria used to be growing at about 22%. It's now down to about 12%. Real GDP is going at 6%. The difference between the two is that you, Adesuwa, you have the potential of carrying 15 kilos of weight, right? You have the potential of having aggregate 6 and grade 1. But you come back home and tell your father you passed, you had grade 3, right? Thank you very much, Adesuwa. You did well, you had grade 3. However, your lesson teacher says that
you can't.
You have the potential of having grade 1. Your potential is grade 1. Your real output is grade 3. How do we get you from grade 3 to grade 1? That is what Nigeria is. If you remove all constraints, right, Nigeria is a double-digit growth economy. So what are the constraints? Some of the constraints are structural. Some of them are impediments created by men, bottlenecks. Part of it is that the injections, that is the inflows, are lower than the leakages. So what is left is actually a declining, right? Mm-hmm. Even though you're growing at a slower pace than you should be growing. So you got to sit down and, so the leadership have to understand these variables. And they're very simple to understand. You know, the economic decisions that are made emotionally and those made rationally. Rational expectations will assume that you bring everybody to a rational basis of making decisions. Mm-hmm. So the woman selling Gary and all of that, divorces herself from emotional decisions. She just takes it and makes that decision. Absolutely. And that keeps her going, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So there's leadership, there's followership, and then there's living in a fool's paradise. What I say is that I try to distinguish between oil rich and oil poor. When everybody thinks that we are rich, we are not.
But we have oil.
Poor. It means what? It means you have 12,000 barrels for 1 million people. Saudi Arabia has 295,000 barrels for 1 million people. Assuming that oil was $100 a barrel, I want you to imagine the income. If Rivers State was a country, right? Mm-hmm. Rivers State will have 70,000 barrels for 1 million people. But Rivers State is part of Nigeria. Okay?
Having oil.
Yes.
Having oil and not being able to refine it is a problem that Nigeria needs to solve. We are the 7th largest oil producer in the world.
We used to be 6.
We are 6th, actually.
We're back up to 6.
We import refined products. We need to address that. We need to deal with that, you know. You shouldn't be so blessed, you know, as you can't even refine the quantity that you will use. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't...
No, but you see, I want to draw the
we have a refining capacity of over 400,000 barrels a day in Nigeria.
If the refineries will work.
No, we have pipelines and depots. Total cost of all of these things, to replace those things today will cost you something like over maybe $12 to $15 billion, if not more. But the reality is that just resuscitate them and make them work. So that all the petrol tankers are out of the way. The refineries are working. So you cut all this nonsense about subsidy scam and subsidy. There's nowhere in the world that you subsidize consumption. You actually subsidize production. And if it's consumption, you subsidize for things that are productive, not just use and disappear. If we are consuming education services, if you are subsidizing health, if you are subsidizing education, if you are subsidizing milk for schools, like Mrs. Thatcher used to stop to that time. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I can understand that. But actually to subsidize the elite in driving their cars, in any case, now subsidy is academic in the sense that if you work it out, the jury is out as to whether there's still a subsidy or whether the people are subsidizing the government. So at the end of the day,
it's a political, at the end of the day, political decisions are key. You know, that's what we're saying. Right, so I would like us to round up our last statements, because we can go on. I can even record 2 hours on this, because I would like us to round up how we draw the relationship between our faith and the kind of leadership that we have. Just to round up.
Right.
1 minute. It's not a debate, but it's 1 minute.
For Nigeria has to be taken by the people that Nigeria has given the mandate to rule, to take decisions. So much of the things we are discussing, Nigeria needs to refine its own crude. Is a political issue, is a leadership challenge. You and I cannot do it. Government has to ensure that it gets done here. We are saying that the rail sector should be reformed, largely by doing what they did in telecoms. Break government monopoly, carve the nation out into zones and regions, and give concessions for people to develop and run.
Already, though.
No,
nothing is happening.
Okay.
No,
that's a complete
government cannot fix rail. Government never managed to fix telecoms. They will never manage to fix rail. They never manage to fix power. They will never manage to fix rail. You privatize it. Those three are network infrastructure. And the way forward is to liberalize them, let private sector come and run them. But until government gets out of the way, you can do anything.
I'm afraid of a capitalist nation. Are we turning capitalist? Is that what we're saying?
No, welfarist nation. You see, what Ayo said is, one, politics is about the struggle for power and leadership. Politicians become policymakers when they get into power. The policies influence markets. You and I are the markets. And 4 things that happen when you make your policies. One is that it influences my production, what we call the production function. If it doesn't, it affects my consumption. If you change certain policies, I have to consume. If you ban the import of certain goods, I have to consume the other.
So I have to be concerned.
Right? So production function, consumption function, savings function. So if you increase interest rates, I save more and consume. And then more than anything else, consumption function. So those are the things that happen. But more than anything else, he said, let's go back to Britain. British Rail was a government-owned. I know every time they went on strike, it was a mess. When it was opened up and privatized, you now have Virgin and all the other things. So it was British Telecom first, British Rail after, right? That was the sequence before, and Britain is what it is today, right? So you can't, if Nigerian Telecom first, NITEL, Nigerian Railway, Nigerian Power, no, you can, whatever sequence, but you have to do it. You have to do the 3. Or else your economy is going to be shackled.
Will you make people have jobs, please?
No, in fact, nothing will create more jobs.
Rail is one of the leading employment activities in itself. Then it's going to boost other sectors to create jobs as well. It's going to open up.
So even if you have me 700 naira, I'll be able to afford it.
No, your village. And that's why, in closing, I always refer to what Farid Zakaria said. First of all, African countries, and Nigeria in particular, leaders should stop doing stupid things, 1. 2, they should start doing smart things. Then 3, you start doing modern things from the smart things. So the 3 things, first of all, must ask yourself, list out all the things which you consider to be stupid and ask government to stop doing the stupid things. Then, when you stop doing the stupid things, you now say, okay, what are the smart things? Then when you say those smart things, you now say, well, let us modernize those smart things. So if you have done telecom and with a smart thing, now how do I modernize it to make the telecom a platform for international interaction and make my economy competitive? That's the sequence. End of story.
Thank you very much. But what are the smart, tell me 2 smart things that we have done that we must continue doing. 2 smart things.
Well, 2 smart things that we need to do.
Okay, that we need to do, okay.
Refine your crude.
Okay.
And the second one, fix your rail sector.
2 smart things that we must do, just 2.
Allow your currency become convertible, right?
Devalue your currency?
No. Allow it become convertible. Okay. Right? And reduce your taxes. Simplify your tax code.
Wow, I would say yes to that. I would like to say a simplified tax system, but the most important thing, I would like a situation where I go into the market and when I'm buying something, it's worth the price. And unemployment is done, but my panel has made me understand that even I am an economic agent, and so are you. But we should make sure our leaders going forward are doing smart things that would help us all be smarter and our money work smarter for us. So I must thank you for being with us on the show today. Hopefully you've gone away with something I have. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, sirs, for being with us.